House Speaker Mike Johnson, meanwhile, sending a letter to President Biden yesterday demanding that he use executive orders to crack down on the border crisis. Johnson writes this: all of this is a direct result of your administration's policies. You have clearly undermined America's sovereignty and security. Customs and Border Protection sources telling Fox News that illegal migrant encounters at the border have already surged past 200,000 in December alone. We still have a week to go. The White House says it will send Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas to Mexico in the coming days to meet with Mexican President Obrador. There's been 10,000 illegals every day at the border. Joining me right now is former Texas Congresswoman and Texas congressional candidate Mayra Flores. Mayra, great to have you this morning. Thanks very much for being here. You've been living this where you live in a border town. Your husband actually is a border enforcement official. How would you assess the situation today at the border?
Our southern border is on fire, and the Biden administration refuses to enforce our own immigration laws. And it's because of that we have millions of people coming into the United States illegally, because he's allowing everyone to claim asylum. And 90% of them do not qualify for asylum under our own asylum laws. We need to detain and deport immediately back to their home country.
Well, we've got incredibly stunning pictures today from this week. Yesterday in Lukeville, Arizona, it was just amazing, the amount of people that were coming into the country. And now we're told that they're given court dates 8 years from now. So they come in, they get processed, then they're told come back in 2031. So tell us how that plays out.
Well, that encourages more people to come here illegally into our country. They know that if they come here illegally, they will be allowed to stay. This administration has made it easier for you to come here illegally and not legally. It's a slap on the face on the millions of people that are waiting in line to come here to the United States, that are waiting their court date in Ciudad Juarez. But that's not going to happen because these people are being allowed to stay and giving court dates. It's a huge disrespect for people like myself who did it the right way, like my family that came here to work hard to make this country better. These people are coming in feeling entitled, and the only people that should be entitled is the American people. They need housing. This country is spending $450 billion a year. It is ridiculous, all while the American people are struggling to pay their own bills. It's a huge disrespect to the American people.
You say they're spending billions on the migrants and on processing people.
$450 million a year. Absolutely.
$450 million a year. Okay, good. Yeah, I'm glad you corrected that.
Yes.
I was thinking, wow, that is an incredible number. Now, we understand that President Biden
Which is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, whether it's $450 million or $450 billion. But yes, it makes sense that it's $450 million. But look, we're told that Biden is holding a phone call today with the president of Mexico, Mexican President Obrador, and they discussed the border crisis yesterday, apparently. Obrador reigniting his ongoing feud with Texas Governor Greg Abbott, saying that Mexico's foreign ministry is working on a legal challenge to Texas's new border law. You know that law allows local law enforcement to arrest migrants who have entered the country illegally. Obrador claims that Abbott acts that way because he wants to be the Republican vice presidential candidate. And he wants to win popularity with these measures. He's not going to win anything, according to Obrador. On the contrary, he says he's going to lose support because there are a lot of Mexicans in Texas and a lot of migrants, Mayra. Your thoughts?
Well, we don't need the president of Mexico to enforce our immigration laws. We don't need him. And he does wake up every morning to do his mañanera as the president of Mexico and calls on Mexican Americans to vote against Republicans and criticizes Republicans' policies every single morning in his mañaneras. So I have no faith in the president of Mexico. He has done nothing to keep the people of Mexico safe. Thousands of young people and women are being murdered in Mexico, and their families are not getting the justice. And then he has to call on us and criticizes our policies. Absolutely not. We don't need him to enforce our own immigration laws. It's simple. We need to enforce our own immigration laws. We need to
Right.
put back in place the policies that were working under President Trump. Under President Trump, we had a secure border. None of this chaos was happening. They continue to blame Congress and the broken system, but it wasn't broken under President Trump. Look, even under Obama, we had a safer border than this. He was
Yeah.
known as a deporter in chief.
Let me ask
We've
you.
never seen anything like this before.
The Mexican cartels are obviously taking home billions of dollars through their business, quote unquote, of human trafficking and drug trafficking. Do you think the drug cartels are running all of Mexico? I mean, is Obrador working with the Mexican cartels? Is what I'm saying.
Mexican cartel is definitely running Mexico. I have family in Mexico, and millions of Mexican Americans here in the United States cannot visit their loved
Wow.
ones in Mexico because we're afraid. They're making $13 billion a year because of illegal immigration. Illegal immigration is making them more powerful. They're in full control of the southern border. They abuse, they rape children and women every single day. They have no
Wow.
disrespect for human life. Just a few days ago, they killed 12 young people in Mexico. A few weeks ago, 5 young people in Mexico every single day. They're not just selling their drugs. They're also, threatening small business owners as well. They have to pay their monthly quota. If they don't pay their monthly quota to them, they know where their wives work, where their children go to school. So they
Oh, my
threaten them
goodness.
every single day. So the people of Mexico live in fear. And President López Obrador has done nothing to keep the people of Mexico safe. So he has no reason to be criticizing us and our policies when he can't keep the people of Mexico safe.
Yeah, so I'm
Instead,
just trying
he should
to
be
understand
criticizing
what.
Democrats' policies.
Yeah, what is Blinken and Mayorkas going to do with the president of Mexico? I mean, Joe Biden, in his
Nothing.
weak response to this overflowing border, he sends his 2 henchmen to meet with Obrador and go to Mexico. I mean, why not go to Texas? Why not go to Arizona? So you could actually
Exactly.
see what's going on in America. No, they're going to Mexico. And we have this news that a Colombian woman who illegally crossed the border and was released into the United States was given a check-in with a New York City court date for 2031, as I mentioned earlier. Fox Business's Hillary
Imagine
Vaughn
that.
grilled the administration on this yesterday. Listen to how they respond. Watch this.
Some illegal border crossers are being given court dates in 2031. What are they supposed to do here for 7 years?
Again, that's a better question put to the DHS. I'm not in a position to talk about specific cases like that. About the
Someone's
specific-
lived here for 7 years and presumably gotten a work permit and worked here. If their asylum claim is denied, are they really going to be deported, or is that just a problem for the next president?
Again, I'm not going to get into hypotheticals about specific cases. He does believe we need, and he has worked to increase legal pathways to citizenship. But obviously, illegal pathways, you need to be held account if you're trying to come into the country illegally.
Maida, your reaction?
Ridiculous. 90% of them do not qualify for asylum.
Yeah.
90%. They will not be coming to their court date. And what are they going to do for 7 years? We're
We don't
supposed to
know.
be housing them and carrying them for 7 years?
That's right. Yeah. It's
This is
unbelievable.
ridiculous. All while, again, the American people are struggling to pay their own bills.
Wow.
It's a slap on the
Maida.
face on migrants like myself and the American people.
Thanks
came
very
here
much
legally.
for weighing in on this, Maida. Merry Christmas to you, and we will catch up soon. Maida
Merry
Flores
Christmas
this
to you,
morning.
too.